So I have been doing quite a lot of research about how throughout the time, how was our relationship as people and nature. And it seems that it has been changing a lot. And we know where we are right now, right? I will just, I just picked some of the phrases that they represent the most, how different was the understanding back in the time, back in the time of my culture, the first one, the Greek culture, that it was very clear and understandable that a person is constructed by the elements. And when I talk about the elements, I talk about earth, air, water, and fire. The four elements we all know, we can all see around us. So every time you hear me talking about the elements, this is the base, this is what I'm talking about. And back then they were understanding that every cause of illness inside of us, it's an imbalance between these four elements. Which funnily enough, right now, when I talk about that, it's an idea that sounds new, but it's not new at all. It's just rediscovered. Going further on, except from the physical health, where Hippocrates was talking about, there have been research from the Health Research Institute in Australia that they understand that also the mental health, it's completely attached to the balance or imbalance inside of us of these four elements. These four elements in these both cases are referred also like more literally as matter, but also as energy forces. And I will guide you a little bit more on that. If there are any questions, you can just stop me at any time and just ask questions. I love responding. This is a theory that is coming back to us again. And as always, the theories, when they come back again, they're supposed to be applied a little bit extended than when they were applied before. And we can extend it all by all of us understanding it better, right? So it's like, I'm presenting you an idea, but feel free to ask me questions whenever you want. And last but not least, the one that I feel that is quite interesting to take as an idea to kickstart this talk, talking about physical energy and how approaching ourselves as an ecosystem. So as everybody, it is an ecosystem, and we have to see that the greater capacity of physical energy we build, it will be a base practically of getting better, whatever you want to improve. And I will just start from there. Our initiative is called Warriors for Element because I feel that there are many people right now that are working in what is calling their hearts. Many of them are totally in their own path of creating something that didn't exist before, breaking down patterns, breaking down taboos, and all of that. I feel we are in this big shift that is happening both in nature and in us. And the word warrior there is coming to represent somebody who is fighting for their values. So it's not the word as we use to hear it as fighting to conquer, but is mostly fighting for something that we value about. And it is an archetype. I'm just clarifying some things in the beginning that are coming a lot as questions. So every time you hear them, your mind doesn't get stuck in them. So then you can really go deeper. All of them are words. The important is for us to see if there is any value in understanding the connection between these three parts. I'm going to be presenting you later. So let's start from nature. And we start from nature because there's nothing else to be starting from. It is our base. Without that, we wouldn't be here talking. And I also feel that nature is a teacher that can show us so much more from what we think that we know about it if we just listen a little bit deeper and better. And also, I have been saying again and again that every time I present this system, because it is based in observation of nature, it's breaking down, it's going further than ideologies. It's not something that we believe or not. It's something that the only thing that we know for sure is existing around us. There are many beliefs from my side, and all of them are valuable. There are many religions, many beliefs, many streams of thought. All of them are valuable from my side. But nature does work with a specific way. And there is a cycle that is being working in nature for all the billions of years that this planet, at least that we know, exists. And it's a very simple cycle. At the same time, the simplicity is its power. So you can start from wherever you want. There are many theories from which element to start. I keep approaching it differently depending if I'm talking to a person, to an ecosystem, or to an organization. So I will just give you an example. Many times it's interesting to start either from the element that we are more connected with. So personally for me, that would be air, or to the element that we would love to understand a little bit better. In this specific case, let's talk about myself, just to have an example. This could be earth. So you can start from any element that you would like to go deeper. It's both ways are very interesting. You can either start from your strength or you can start from your need. Both of them will lead you into extremely interesting insights. I will just start from the strength, just to have an example. And right here, let's talk about air. The atmosphere, it's the layer that was created first, right after the planet was formed, in order to be able to allow life to exist. So air element was practically the second after the earth that starts being around the planet and that ignited all the rest of life. The funny part with the atmosphere is also that it's the only element on the earth that even if we have been trying a lot to create extremely interesting ways of separating ourselves, nobody has yet managed to separate the atmosphere. We do have air borders, but they're not operating exactly the same as the other borders, as you know. And also, it's much more obvious to understand that it's literally impossible to stop the air over a country. It's an element that is really uniting us all. And that's the interesting part of it. The atmosphere is the one, and the oxygen, most of it, all its composition is very important, but oxygen is the primary one, is the one that is igniting fire. And I chose to start from these two, except from being an element that I resonate a lot with. It's because this time we are in the element of the fire. Summer is in the northern hemisphere, right? Is the time that fire is all around us. It's warm, the sun is closer to the earth. And globally right now, we are in a phase, there is a lot of burning down of the old to create new earth. And the way I'm speaking, it's always connecting all the systems that you will see. If there are questions, please note them down. I will be very happy to answer them. Fire is an element that is represented from two parts in our living systems. The first one is the sun. So sunlight is also representing the element of fire. And most of us know how important it is for life to exist, how important it is for the plants to be able to grow, how important it is for us to be functional, how important it is for the animals, how important it is to break cycles, and to create practically by breaking down the compositions that don't need to be there the way they are, is creating the earth, soil, the geosphere. So every time this cycle is happening from fire to the earth, we know that there is new soil happening. And that's very, very important because that's when new cycles start operating on our planet. Everything is based on the earth. Wanting it or not, this is our planet. This is where we stand upon. And this is the basic source of nutrients and the basic deposit, let's say, of nutrients. The earth and the geosphere is funnily one that we know quite little about, just because it's much more difficult to observe than the other ones. All the other, most of them, except for the water that does go underground, all the others are visible to us, are very easily understandable. While the earth, for example, we know until several layers, but we only have theories about what's happening beyond that. And that's because of its density. Each element, its density, the way it operates in nature, and the way it communicates with the other elements, you will see that it has a lot to do with the way that we understand it for us and the way we use it for our societies. So that's why I'm talking about some specific characteristics that are very, might sound simplistic right now. You might say, of course, I know all of this. I'm just repeating them because then it will be more easily for you to see to the connection. Then we're going to the element of the water, which stands on the earth and goes through the earth with the underwater tanks. And as we know, it's a very interesting and mysterious element, mostly because we know very little about it, funnily enough, or we have been discovering so much more lately, so that's why it feels that we know so little about it. The water is an element that seems to be connecting all the rest of them, transmitting information between all the other elements and transporting nutrients. It's an element that its cycle is very important for all existence at the same time. And it's an element that it can be both extremely nurturing and can also be destructive in excess, as all of them, basically, but water also. So this is a very simple, simplistic way of saying the four elements operating in a circle in nature. And we're just saying that to go a little bit further. We're just saying that because I would like to guide you in these 3 steps that I see connected. The first one is nature, and it's the nature as we see it outside of us. The second one is the nature as we see inside of us, so the 4 human bodies. I call them body because it's the easiest way to be understood, and they're operating literally as different bodies almost. They're all, of course, connected, right? But you can very clearly see and understand which one of all is operating at every single moment if you pay a little bit of attention, exactly as you do for nature when you're going to observe it. And all the 4 human bodies will have connection later on, we will see, with the 4 types of capitals that every person and every society needs to thrive, not to survive, to thrive. We're trying to move a little bit away from just survival. I will just make it a connection between the 4 elements and the 4 bodies. As you can see, the air element is our mental energy. It's how our brain works. It's our thoughts. And one simple question for you to understand how this body operates is how well can you focus on something? And then you will understand that it's automatically going up on your head, and we're talking about this specific body. The earth element that is down on my screen is connected to our physical body. And one question that you can understand how and really concentrate your focus into this body is how healthy you are. How healthy do you feel? The water element is connected to our emotional body. It's our emotions. And then you can just ask a very simple, yet sometimes very difficult question. How happy are you? And you will automatically feel that the focus is moving towards a different space in your body, many times close to your heart. And then all of the thoughts and ideas are connected differently than in the other bodies. And the last one, the fire element, is connected to our spiritual energy. And then you can start focusing on that by simply asking, what is your purpose? And these are very simple ways of starting understanding the 4 human bodies if you haven't experienced them before. Many of you, I can imagine that you have. So I would like to just go on a little bit and continue and do the connection directly to the four capitals of our society. And again, it will be a triple connection, right? From nature to ourselves to our society. Just because I feel that that's a healthier way to approach our challenges and our growth. From nature, from where we started, through us, because it is us creating societies, to the society that is the outcome from many of us coming together. So let's go again. From the air element, we're connecting to the mental body, mental energy, and we're connecting to the intellectual capital. And when I talk about intellectual capital, just to break it down, it's everything that has to do with knowledge, with understanding, with science, everything that has to do with mental energy, that we use mental energy to acquire this capital. And usually it is stored like that. It's stored as thoughts, books, courses, workshops. So all of that is intellectual capital. Going back again to the earth element, the physical body and the financial capital, it's a capital that doesn't need so much explanation, I guess. So it has to do with money, investments, real estate, physical locations. So everything that is on that aspect is the financial capital. The financial one is the most well known, but it's not the only one. It's just the one that is more it's easier to measure and distribute until now, because we started becoming more ethereal, so we will start understanding the others more. But it was the one that was more easy for us to measure it, because it's the one that we can see, touch, and gather. Imagine earth. Imagine how easy it is to touch and understand the soil, because it's in front of you and you can really hold it. Imagine how much more difficult it's to hold the air or the water that doesn't stay for a long time, or even more the spirit. So I'm just doing that for you to understand why we might be giving so much attention to the financial capital. It was just easier for us to understand it until now, but that's changing. And then we're going to the water element, to the emotional body, the emotional energy, and to the social capital. And social capital is everything that has to do with human connection. It's networks, friendships, mentorship. It's everything that has to do with you knowing other people, being connected to them through social structures. It can be family, it can be friendships, it can be any type of structure. And that is creating a net that is very important for us to feel secured and nurtured. Exactly the same as water is creating this web, this vital web, that if we don't have it, we feel literally thirsty. We feel that we're missing something very important from our life. And then we are going to the fire element, again, to our spiritual energy, and it's our spiritual capital. And this is the most difficult to perceive because it's the most ethereal. It is the most ethereal because that's how spirit is. At the same time, it's very present, and it's very easy to understand if somebody's liking of it or not. Remember the purpose, for example. Most of the times, we tend to separate spirituality from the rest of our actions or moves. So we tend to separate spirituality from our work. We tend to separate spirituality from our family, from our children. But unfortunately, it's extremely important to have it inside our system. It's the fourth one that is very important to be there, because if it's missing, practically the engine of the system is missing. Imagine the sun. If all of a sudden sun disappeared, we wouldn't exist. Simply as that. The plants wouldn't exist. We stay out of sun for a few days and we get depressed. So I'm just doing this parallelism to understand how the elements are being represented through us. And that's our spiritual capital. In society, the spiritual capital, it used to be represented mostly through religions, which is a system that it had it's peak as all the systems, and in my personal opinion, I feel that it's fading away for other systems to come into its place. While it's very important to do have other systems that represent us and allow us to connect with something bigger than us, that has something higher than us. And I would like you to see all of the system once again together, how the elements connect, how the elements in nature outside of us, let's say, connect to the elements in nature inside of us, because that's our bodies, that's the human body, and the nature of our societies. Because for me, that's all ecology. It's the same way that we treat nature, that we will treat ourselves, and we will treat our societies. And my personal focus, that's how the system works. So I would just like to wrap it here. That's the connection of it, of the system of the words for elements. I would like to take it a little bit further. What is our focus? And this is in spiritual entrepreneurship. And when I talk about spiritual entrepreneurship, I talk about entrepreneurs, so people who are creating new projects and businesses. I put them inside the same bucket. It doesn't need to be a business that is only focused in profit. It has to be somebody who is creating something that he wish existed in the world. For me, that's the definition of an entrepreneur. Just clarifying that, because sometimes there are connotations about what entrepreneur means. And spiritual entrepreneurs are people who have been creating from spiritual guidance. So they're people who at some point they realized that where they were or the way they were operating, it couldn't fulfill their purpose. They were feeling either empty or that they were betraying themselves. And they decided to take a step towards start being fully integrated also in their work. So not working just to be able to make money, but working in a way that expressed their life mission. And as you can imagine, in our society, that sometimes can be tricky and misunderstood, but many times is also extremely inspiring. So I would like to take the system that we were seeing before and apply it into entrepreneurship, into spiritual entrepreneurship, as I call it. There are many words about it, doesn't really matter. Because I feel that it's very connected and very easy to understand. So four aspects of entrepreneurship, the four basic aspects of entrepreneurship actually are innovation, risk, organization, and communication. In almost any type of business or project, you might see that you have all of them. If some of them is missing, you might have either less growth or less expansion or less people knowing about you or less steps moving you forward. So if some of them is missing, usually it slows down the whole system. In that specific case though, I would like to add a fifth element, which was always present. It's just, I feel that here's the right time to talk about it. There is almost no system in the world from antiquity that didn't have a fifth element present. The only difference was that the fifth element is not from our physical world. We cannot observe it in the physical world. It's maintained, it lives in different realms. And this fifth element is the vision if we're talking about an organization, or the purpose if we're talking about the person. And this fifth element, funnily enough, even if it's the one that you never really see, you can feel it, you can sense it, but really, really few people actually see it ever. It's one of the most important ones, because this whole system that you have been saying all the time with the four elements, without the fifth, it remains just a simple structure in 2 dimensions. So imagine, as you say it exactly, it's a square drawn on a paper. This square is only 2-dimensional. And our reality, when it remains 2-dimensional, and now I'm talking a little bit metaphorically, it can be very, very plain, to use this word. Though there is one way that is the one I have seen in many people that is the most effective way of creating something that draws towards the heavens, towards something higher, something bigger, to make us create, to make us want to live. And this is usually a vision or a purpose that we have. And this exactly is the 5th element, is this point in the pyramid that you see on the right side of the screen, that's creating the whole movement that is picking up the center, the balance point of these 4 elements, and it's pushing it towards the heavens. And this is how the 5th element is working. This system, you might have heard in the introduction, it's a system that it's definitely not my system. It's a system that has been applied in antiquity, and I just stumbled upon it again, and the world seems to be rediscovering it and re-understanding it, and we just all have our part. And it's actually how the pyramids that you know in Egypt have been built. The 4 corners were representing the 4 directions and the 4 elements, and the 5th was the one that was creating this super device that is the Great Pyramid, for example, or the Queen's Pyramid. That is it's a magnifier for anything that you wish to create inside of it, so any type of vibration. So this system, I realized that it can live not only in physical structures, but also in human structures, in societal structures. So practically, it's a magnifier of anything that you put in the center. And this center needs to be a balanced one. The way we are approaching it, and the Warriors for Element, which is a tribe of spiritual entrepreneurs, it's by creating 4 different aspects, and also connecting all our impact circles with 4 people that are representing the 4 elements. So you will see a little bit further on how this all works. I just wanted to put everything together so you have it a little bit more visual before I start guiding you. The first one, again, we're starting, it's the air element. And I'm talking about impact circles. And every time I'm talking about impact circles, you can think of a structure like a mastermind group that many of you might have heard. So it's a circle of people who are coming together with similar experience, but very different business types, and they're willing to share and receive knowledge among themselves. And usually a system that has been used a lot from entrepreneurs because it's very beneficial, and it's very fast. They can give you very beautiful solutions, and it has to do all of it, as you understand, with the air element. So about the intellect, it's a way of connecting that one thought, one idea, one experience that somebody has passed before, one personal experience, one question, one hinge, can activate something inside the other person that make him go way further in his own evolution. So that's our first step. And the impact circles work like that. Again, all the 4 elements will be represented in every impact circle. So every impact circle has 4 people, and every person is representing one of the 4 elements. How? Most of us do have an element that is representing our essence. It's very easy to find. I will not go deeper into that. Most of you might know. If anybody is interested, just email me and I will guide you how to find it. It's very easy. The important is that, remember the structure that we saw here. Imagine the structure, but instead of having words in the communication, innovation, risk, and organization, you have actually people, and you have Kim, Lee, Michelle, and Jeffrey, for example. And all of these people are representing one of the four elements. So just imagine that with everything you have heard, in the center of these four people is that circle, this balance point that's been created from them. And the facilitator, which is the fifth person, is the one who is creating this movement towards beyond what only the four could do together. And that's the vision and the purpose. That's what we're going to be doing in the impact circles, which is starting in September. And if anybody's interested, we'll be very happy to have you joining us. So you can just email me. I will give you all the details after. And every impact circle will start in the beginning of every season, because every season is also representing one of the four elements as an energy. So autumn has a very different energy than spring, for example. Summer and winter have very different energies. And the more we start aligning with them, the more we enter in flow with the universe, with nature, instead of trying to do things when everything needs to be done a little bit differently. It is very common, unfortunately. So the impact circles is practically a structure, to a human structure this time, that accelerates the impact that it wants to create, that each one of the people who are in the circle wants to create. It is dedicated to spiritual entrepreneurs, because I feel that are the people who can create the most benefit right now, and they're open whoever would like to join. Second one, we're going into the water element, because every time you have people gathering together, there is a type of community that is being created. There is no other way. And the more you start paying attention in how the community is created, the more you can start understanding what the community needs and what kind of resources it has in excess. And the moment you can connect these 2 points, people who have an excess of something and people who are missing something, you're activating abundance just by simply connecting resources. If you wish, I don't know if I can show you that. I'm just going to put it in the chat, actually. I have created a very simple mapping of resources that you can use if you want, and try to understand in this system how strong you feel is the intellectual capital, the financial capital, the social capital, the spiritual capital of yourself or of your business. You will see the map is a very simple one. It goes from 1 to 10, with 1 being very little, very low, and 10 being very high. So if you feel that you're very capable in the intellectual capital, then you put a 10, for example. If you feel that you're very low in social capital, you're not so social, you just put a 2 or 3. It's a very easy mapping to do. And funnily enough, it gives you a lot of insights. And that's the way we're going to be structuring the resource database in our online community, so people can start sharing. So if somebody has a 10 in the financial capital, for example, and somebody has 1, it's almost 99.9% sure that these 2 people can benefit from each other. Mostly if the second resource, so if the person who has 1 in financial capital has a 10 in some other capital, and the person who's missing that is the other, then it's almost like 100% that they can create, they can enhance balance to each other's system, the same way that nature does. And as I talked about the financial capital, and we're going to the element of the earth, the abundance, I feel, is something that we very much have given away from us to external resources, to investors, to funds, when we don't realize the actual power that we have. And this power is our collective power of all of us coming together and separating a specific amount from what is being contributed in this particular case for the impact circle, so that for an added value that you get anyway. And these funds slowly start creating a bigger pool that, whenever is needed, can be used as a bigger help for one specific project. So I feel that it's time to start understanding our collective power into how we create abundance and we use the financial capital. Together we can create much, much more than we can imagine. And the last but not least, and that's how I'm going to close also for today, is the fire element. It was our last one that creates earth again. And this is a very personal spiritual activation that we did in Portugal, and we aim to repeat every year from now on in different places in the world. And this is directed to personal growth. It's, for me, fire many times is the last step. It's the last trigger to start creating either a new ecosystem and on the planet, a new leaf or a new juice in a plant, start creating a new belief inside of us if we're talking about the human bodies, or start creating a new project, a new business, a new family in when we are using it as a financial capital. So many times it represents a destruction and a reconstruction. And this, in the spiritual growth, I have seen that it can be even more powerful and beneficial for entrepreneurs and individuals when it happens applying the same system, being nature, connecting to ourselves, connecting to our group.